Self-improvement is all about learning, but sometimes people can't make themselves put in the time to learn things they need to reach their goals. This means we can end up experiencing entire lost days where our good intentions don't end up producing any results. By the end of this video, you'll know how to make learning faster and more consistent, stop experiencing lost days, and accelerate your progress in life. To understand the best way to learn, we need to pay attention to the way learning works in the brain by forming new connections between neurons. Changing the physical structure of the brain like this isn't something that can happen all at once. It has to be done in repeated small increments that add up to a larger change over time. It's safe to say that all of us have had the experience of planning to learn something in one big block and then stopping after a shorter time than we wanted, feeling completely burned out and unable to focus for hours. This happens because there's a hard limit to the amount of time we can concentrate for, and it's actually far shorter than you'd think. Estimates are that at some point between 20 to 45 minutes of focusing on something, the human brain's ability to concentrate falls apart. If you try to push yourself for longer than this, then your productivity can drop through the floor. A great way to avoid having this happen is by using something called the Pomodoro Technique. This is a method for splitting up your learning time into intervals that's named after the brand of kitchen timer that its creator used to do it. With this technique, you spend 25 minutes focusing completely on one thing, followed by a 5-minute break. Then you repeat this cycle 3 more times before taking a longer break. There are countless websites, computer programs and mobile apps you can use to handle the timing, but in contrast to this, a lot of the people who like using the Pomodoro technique recommend a low-tech solution of using a mechanical timer instead. They claim that the physical act of winding up the timer creates an even greater sense of making a psychological commitment, and that over time you'll end up mentally conditioning yourself to enter a productive mood every time you hear the timer ticking, followed by the ringing at the end being associated with a feeling of achievement, all adding up to it being easier to get yourself to work through the 25 minutes. One of the reasons the technique works is that by working on something for a set amount of time, you're removing the discipline requirement of deciding how long you're going to work for. Whereas normally, whenever we do something self-directed, we end up fighting a constant battle with ourselves within our minds over whether we've done enough to have earned a break yet, taking mental energy away from what you're supposed to be doing. Another reason it works is that you're changing the way you think about learning something to focus on the effort you're putting in instead of the results you're getting out. In general, people are terrible at planning goals because they're terrible at predicting how long something will take. And failing to meet a goal feels awful, even if you haven't actually done anything wrong. You'll be more motivated to spend time learning and working if you focus on how you've succeeded at putting in the effort, which is the only thing you actually have any control over, instead of focusing on potentially failing at another goal that was arbitrary in the first place. The reason it's important to focus on one thing at a time is that it's the only way to prevent an endless stream of distractions from entering our minds. Other ways to avoid distractions are having all the tools you need at your disposal before you get started, as well as making sure the things you don't need aren't around you when you start, and by that I mean you really don't need things that will distract you. This can mean not having a cluttered workspace, or using software to temporarily block access to distracting websites. If you feel like doing time periods longer than 25 minutes, then go ahead. There's no sense in breaking a flow state because of an arbitrary timer. The times given aren't an immutable scientific law, they're just what the technique's creator thought worked when he came up with it. Longer breaks between each session are fine too, if you're doing something mentally demanding and that's what you think you need to do. An optional part of the technique is writing down any distractions that come to mind. The idea is that by putting your distracting thoughts down on paper, you're helping to remove them from your mind, and over time, you'll be training yourself to perform a different action in response to a distracting thought instead of pursuing it. During the break sections, you should do something that helps you to recharge mentally. Some suggestions for things to do during short breaks for the best results are listening to music, meditating and going outside. You should not spend the time web browsing or checking social media, since those things generally won't do anything to restore your ability to concentrate. Learning is a long-term process, and consistency matters way more than the quality of any one study session. This technique helps you to get over the inertia that prevents you from getting started with learning something, and means that you'll be more focused overall than you would be if you just studied something for a long period of time until you could no longer concentrate at all. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, then subscribe to get more like it in the future. Have a great day.